Hello, and welcome to the end of October. It's the ID update. I'm really far off one side of the screen. Let me move. There we go. That's a bit better.
I'm sort of in
Um,
the middle.
Thank you for joining us for our monthly live stream here. Let us know in the chat where you're joining us from. The topics today, of course, I sort of fleshed out a main topic that I pushed out there for smarter people to share their ideas on ahead of time, meaning I
I'm
had to
afraid.
not prepare, which was nice. Um, but no, so hopefully some of you are joining us to further discuss around, tech won't fix it. Maybe it will
I think
fix
it's a
it.
good time for it to bring it back. It's been a
Um,
year.
yeah, this is it. It's not a new topic by any stretch. Hey Luke, thanks for joining us. Let's jump in the chat. Apologies if you are joining us on Twitch. I have, according to Twitch, and I don't quite believe them because it's Twitch. Apparently, I don't know my password, so I have no access to the account. But the
Oh,
platform says that the stream is going there. So apologies, Twitch people. If you're trying to get involved and I'm not responding to you, it may be because I just can't see your messages. Either you could move to a proper platform like YouTube, or
proper platform. I love
absolutely.
it.
By which I mean a platform on which you contribute to my watch hours, or alternatively, we will try and pick up your messages if I can by tuning in as a viewer. Hey Olga, thanks for joining. From Belgium
Hey.
this time. Recently moved. You live
Cool.
in all the best places. Like this is awesome. Love. Let us know which part of Belgium, not to like a creepy, not like street and number and code, more just like general area of Belgium. Let's have a look. And hello, Andreas. Yeah. Oh, here we go. I think I can see the messages from Twitch because I've got a bot straight away. So that's smashing.
Huzzah.
Remove you.
Yeah, I can see Stream Elements at least is telling you.
Cool. Awesome. So, without further ado, then obviously we'll cover that topic. We'll also do our usual discussion about where other technology is, any updates for the month. But other than that, in the meantime, let's roll that intro.
I'm gonna race to get a beer.
There's only one place for the breaking news in the world of instructional design. The ID Update with Tom and Joe. All the news you never knew you never needed. Only on IDT. And we're back.
Almost made
Or
it
I'm
back
back.
in time. I
Oh,
almost
so
did.
close. So close.
close.
And Olga, the best parts then, by the sounds of it. That's very exciting. I hope you're enjoying learning Dutch. It's quite a language. I made it through. Oh, maybe that would be fun. As far as lesson one, and me going nope, and that was my attempt over. But beautiful country, lovely places, lovely people as well, very friendly, which is nice. Cool. So, Joey, how's the month been?
Oh, it's been a while since I've had. So, one of the greatest parts about L&D that I already miss doing some things in marketing is how little there really is to do at the end of the year. Because everyone's gone, taking their vacations and all that. So L&D kind of slows down. Now that I'm doing stuff for Etsy, that's not happening anymore. So, it's been, I've missed the busy. I actually have missed the busy. That's one of the things that I've learned, I think, is one of the hardest things about L&D is if you're such a busybody, especially if you're kind of on your own with a team, like you don't feel as busy, so it's a little harder. I don't know. Maybe that's a me thing. Is that it's just harder to get stuff done when I'm all alone in L&D stuff because I never feel that pressure of a deadline as hard as I probably should. But now I've got like 7 deadlines and 7 projects that all need to kind of wrap into one thing. And instead of like 7 steps of a project, like what an L&D thing would be, it's actual 2 completion projects.
Yeah.
So it's been busy.
Yeah, I think it's so dependent on what you're doing, right?
Mm.
If it's an L&D led project, I think then you're a bit more tied into the overall steps. But if you're just doing the development or just the instructional design or whatever it might be, then yeah, you're inherently losing that longer term set of deadlines, aren't you? But
So what's fun is that I'm actually actively writing documentation for a process that was not written down and I got thrown into, and it didn't go well. And so it was a response of, we'll write documentation so it's smoother next time. And I'm like, I don't like hearing that. So, hey, can I take a crack at it? And like, go for it. It's like, all right. So
nice.
I'm still doing L&D things, amazingly enough.
Look at that. See,
all the L&D
cool. So on to the major topic then. What are you drinking?
I race, but thankfully it's timely, as it is October 28th. I think I've had this on the channel before. I do enough videos. I never know when I'm drinking something, but this is from Roughtail Brewing out in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and it's timely. Polterweiss.
That's quite funny. Like it.
Hefeweizen.
Very nice. So I actually left the can downstairs in the kitchen because the last time I had this beer, I cracked the can and then the side of the can exploded.
Oh no.
And the issue is it's a very thick, very heavy stout that is like a maple syrup stout. So to say it made the office a bit sticky when it did that was an understatement. Like a lot of stuff just had to be replaced. So I had good intentions of cleaning it, but in the end, it went in the bin. So I opened it downstairs this time. But it's a very nice beer from.
I realized I didn't miss this when I showed it off. So bready, balanced, spirited. Like dig
nice.
that. I dig that.
Cool. And let us know in the chat what you're drinking, be it alcoholic or not. Soft drink drinkers are welcome. You'll be judged, but you're welcome. That's no. So yeah, it's been a huge month for events in the industry. Like this end of the year didn't used to feel this hectic. But now, I mean, certainly in the UK, we had World of Learning. We've always had World of Learning in October. It's a great time of year for it. But this year, for the first time, we had another Learning Technologies event the day after World of Learning. And then, obviously, this week we've had in the States DevLearn. We've all been just looking at pictures of people doing cool stuff in Vegas, going, "Yeah, that's great. I'm in the office shop."
Adobe Learning Summit.
We had the Adobe Learning Summit. Like the end of the year is just becoming packed with conferences. It's really quite impressive, really. But no, it's been good. I think highlight for me was did a talk on using video for in the flow learning at World of Learning. That was really good fun. I got to talk about dragons. I got some Arnold Schwarzenegger references in there. We had do it, just do it, and get to the chopper. All the important things to remember when you're thinking about video in learning, you see.
I don't know how you spell it, because you can't spell get to the chopper with TH. It's got to be da. Get to the chopper.
This is it.
You're gonna go Arnold.
If
True lies.
This is it. If you're if you're in any way as much of a nerd as me, you'll know that if you write it as if you're an orc from Warhammer 40k, you'll be there going, the Homies are running to the big gunners with Zeds and Das, and yes, it's much like very similar. But yes, so that was excellent fun. If you're one of the people that joined the channel after that, thank you. There is a channel video version of that session actually going to go up at some point in the next couple of weeks when I finish editing it, as well as some, because this is YouTube, some terrible from the car footage of us going to the event, which I'll play back at like super speed. Except I probably won't because it was done taken on a GoPro, so I'm half expecting it to just look awful. So we shall see. We shall see how it goes.
I've been thinking about a camera upgrade. Speaking of that,
yeah,
camera upgrade, which sucks. As much as I've been giving crap to Logitech, the Brios apparently are fantastic. Like, don't tell me this.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I run into some problems with Brios though. Like, because in theory they're like, oh, they're great 4K webcams, blah blah blah. But a lot of software, I think it's because of the compression system they use. On some software, it turns them down to like 4 frames a second.
Oof.
Yeah. Because I use Riverside for recording stuff, and I had it with the podcast not long ago. And it just makes the video, well, it's 4 frames a second. It's unusable. You know, it's like a slideshow of a human being. It's really bad.
I remember the old days of Real Player. That was normal.
Exactly. We're somewhat. What makes me laugh is it was 4K. They were 4 very crisp 4K frames, but only 4 of them a second. That's a problem. So yeah, it's not ideal. But yeah, they're good cameras. I mean, I think the trouble is, and this is kind of why I'm not a fan of webcams, is even if you buy like a really expensive webcam, the cheapest actual camera will be better. Like, it's just webcam technology, unfortunately, just sucks. It just does.
I also feel dumb. I just learned about Logitune. I didn't know Logitune was a thing. Because they never talk about it.
No.
So for anybody who has a anybody who has a Logitech camera, which is anybody who works in corporate and was assigned a camera, you're used to getting Logitech Capture. That's the thing that when you plug it and play it, they tell you, hey, you should download Logitech Capture, and that's not bad. But like Logitune is specifically designed for streaming. And it's not bad. It's not bad. Like it's got some kind of AI functionality to kind of keep you in center based on where you move your head, and some kind of auto, there's like auto lighting, and like there's like color correction stuff. I'm like, this doesn't suck.
It makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Maybe you should say something about it, guys. What the hell?
Thing is, and this is just, I'm just thinking about it. Let us know if you use anything different in the chat. But I mean, all I'm thinking is, does Logitech want like Jane from accounts and Steve, the on-street engineer, getting confused, installing that and going, what are all these buttons? That is inevitably going to be a contact point, isn't it? If a normie, if you will,
you could be Dell
installs that.
You could do what Dell did. Dell was like, if you're weird enough to buy this camera, then you don't need a microphone. So Dell's high-end 4K, high with an asterisk, and doesn't have a built-in camera, and they don't exactly, or a microphone, and they don't exactly tell you that.
Yeah, I must admit, I personally think if it's going to be a webcam, it should come with it included. I think if someone's buying a webcam, even a high-end webcam, they're clearly not necessarily investing in a setup. They're probably just trying to buy a thing. That's probably why they're buying, a webcam over something else.
Right.
But yeah.
Whatever.
But the point being, much as I said actually at World Learning, whatever you've got is good enough to get started with.
I was this close to buying a 4K today, and I was like, even my software is not going to be able to stream this. My hardware is not even going to be able to touch this. So what am I wasting my money on?
And that's the flip side of this. I mean, like, we could stream this out at 1440p or 4K. I do it at 1080, not because we're kind of capped there, but because, especially when you're live streaming, the higher the resolution, the bigger the delay is between us and you guys watching. So like if you stream at 4K as a prime example, they estimate 25 to 30 seconds, actual seconds of delay between us saying it and you seeing it. Where we are now, we should be between 5 and 8. And for a show that involves any kind of interaction, that's a big difference.
Yeah.
Plus, really, how many people alter the resolution when YouTube inevitably loads up like 360 or 420p by default.
Yeah.
How many people actually go in, click that little cog, and turn it up? I reckon very few. You know, I reckon most people end up just going, I'm only listening to it anyway, so it's good enough. But who knows?
All right. Well, that's just talking about nerd stuff.
Absolutely.
Nerd stuff.
I mean, that's pretty much all this show is. But let's dive in and see how we go. So yeah, I thought I guess there's a bit of a story behind the topic, the discussion topic. So as I went to a lot of these events, I always like to make time to wander around. And the two big things, there were a couple of big things I noticed, but the two that really stuck with me when I was thinking about this topic was, one, the massive reduction in the number of content providers at these events. So it used to be that you walked around the expo, you would see, of maybe 100 stands, half of the room would be content related, and maybe a third of that would be off the shelf content libraries, and 2/3 would be bespoke content providers, or all that kind of stuff. I would say, I mean, maybe there were 120-ish 150-ish stands at World of Learning, and I reckon maybe 10 were content.
Wow.
Like, it really was not many, and that was the same at Learning Technologies earlier in the year. Obviously more stands, but the same kind of reduction in numbers. And companies that used to be content companies aren't content companies anymore. They've diversified into platform and authoring tool and consulting. And it just stuck with me because I think we've heard a lot recently, and I'm on this particular train for sure, that more content is not the answer.
Yeah.
I feel like at the stage that we are at for the last 2 decades, we have flooded the L&D world with more content, more content, more content. Content must be the answer. And I think now we're seeing the rise of curation, platform-driven learning experiences as opposed to content-driven learning experiences. We're seeing focus on reflection rather than learning something new. It was just quite surprising to me, the difference there in the numbers. But the flip side of that being, my God, there are so many technology companies, like not learning technology companies, just technology companies at these events compared to what there used to be, that have kind of, it's not a bad thing, but adjusted their clearly pre-existing technology to an L&D audience, be that VR. I saw for the first time a web analytics company there talking about how they can automate webhooks into your content and pull it out to like a metrics dashboard like Google Analytics, rather than going through an NHS, an LMS.
Interesting.
That's something I've never seen at one of these conferences before.
That's cool.
The whole time, though, when I was speaking to people, there seemed to be this awareness of everyone thinks their technology can fix these problems that exist. Like, take that analytics one. That sounds really cool. Is the lack of webhooks in e-learning the reason L&D is shit at gathering and using data?
Right.
No, it would be my suggestion. Is the lack of a proper grid-based CSS e-learning authoring tool the reason so much e-learning looks like hot garbage? No, would be my suggestion. Which is the question I put out earlier. How do we break the kind of tech will fix it mentality? But I did say first we'll just have a moan about it. So that's kind of my moan about it, is that I feel like a lot of the new technologies in the space, and I've got a good example in mind for this, an AI one, are being created to cover up or allow for bad practices. You've done a terrible job at this for a long time, but rather than fix that, here's a technology that'll cover it up. And the thing that made me
Yeah.
think of that particularly was Anders Pink have released or are releasing an AI-based tool that will basically decide what skills your content maps to by looking at it through AI-ness. And then if someone searches based on a skill, it will recommend the content. You won't be involved in the process at all.
No, I've seen companies try to do the AI thing, and it never works. And this goes back to a conversation we had not too long ago, a couple months ago, I think,
Mhm.
about how many different things a term means. And I'll give you. I'm gonna break Anders. I'll break Anders Pink in one phrase. I already know the term that is going to bust that system to all get out. Business systems analyst. Put that skill in there because it means 30 things. Actually, hilarious. I could also say instructional designer. That'll also break it. But business systems analyst means so many different things in so many different companies, and usually different things in the same company. You can't do that kind of stuff.
I mean, I would say those are more job roles than they are skills.
Fine, business systems analysis. There you go.
I think that's it. But I think there's that side of it as well. But also, like, the pitch for that is, oh, your LMS is full of all this stuff and it's junk and it's not well thought out and blah blah blah. So, well, then fix that. Don't bring in a new tool. Like, if what you have created is a massive steaming pile of content, you fix it. Take it down and start again. Like,
I've got a weird. It's not going to be quite a tangent, but it's going to be just another way to see it. The other thing that I think is another field where this is a little bit of an issue is card grading.
Okay.
Sports grading and trading card grading and stuff like that, where the issue that exists, and this actually might bring up a whole nother topic, which isn't just the definition of things, but the politics behind them. So grading, for people who don't know what grading specifically is, it's I have a card of something. It could be a baseball card, it could be a gaming card, whatever. And I send it to a company that grades the manufacturing quality, and it's done in 4 different groups: corners, edges, the surface, and the centering of the card itself. And the way that it's done is you send those in, and then somebody takes fine-tooth comb, microscope, they look in as best they can, and they give grades based off of how the manufacturing quality was. And naturally, the better it does, the better grades you get, up until like this thing was pristine, and then you get like cool labels and whatnot for them. But one of the things that infects that industry is the politics of population. If I'm grading with the intent of trying to get investment and value out of something, if every card finds itself listed as pristine, the value of those respective cards go down because there's enough of them out there. So then you get into grading companies being so strict on certain things that you can literally crack the case, send it back in, and get different grades on stuff because, like, oh, we've got too many 10s. We need to finagle enough to make this like a 9.5 and a 9. And it blows. So to bring this full circle, I went over to a convention where there was AI grading. Technology was just like, let's fix AI is going to fix this. And I'm like, no, it's a politics. It's literally that companies are intentionally destroying their own, or bypassing their own standards for the sake of something that has nothing to do with the actual quality of the work. And that could be another interesting one for AI learning, like the politics behind leadership training. Leadership means a lot of things, and who do you have access to leadership to, and how far up the pipeline do you go when it comes to leadership training? Do you dabble into C-suite things? Like, then you get into like, what kind of access are you giving? And are you giving too many people access? And
yeah, I mean, I guess
how about this?
Sorry,
gatekeeping. AI, because then you get into AI gatekeeping.
Yeah, and I don't think realistically, first of all, I don't think AI is good enough to do that. I think that's the one saving grace of many industries that AI will replace is the fact that it won't, because AI kind of sucks. It's
Yeah.
it's just the current reality. One day, I have no doubt that there's going to be this sudden jump and amazing stuff's going to happen. But in my experience, I found there are just any slightly off thing sends it completely off the rails. And that's in a production, especially in an L&D production space where, let's face it, stuff changes by the hour. The priorities of a modern L&D team change direction so freaking quickly, rightly or wrongly. I should stress, I'm not saying this is all good stuff. It's just the reality. That an AI, in my opinion and in my experience, just freaks out because it can't deal with that many different not counterintuitive, counteracting requests. They're going to constantly challenge each other. But my fundamental objection to it is just that so many of these technologies are kind of being pushed as a band-aid over bad practice. Like, fundamentally, if you have not built your LMS on a tag-based taxonomy or a taxonomy-based tagging system, and you filled your LMS with courses that do not meet the needs of your learners, you are the problem, not technology.
Right.
You built that mess. The solution is for you to realize that it's the problem and fix it.
Yeah. It's not that you get Skynet, where they just realize that we're the problem and we don't want to fix our own stuff. And then you get Terminator, which is not a bad thing until you get to like Terminator Genesis. Then it's a terrible thing. And you regret all of your decisions.
That hurts. It's not true, but it does hurt. So
it's not. Yeah, my concern isn't that having a Skynet will eventually lead to a post-apocalyptic war between humans and machines. It's that someone might have to make Terminator Genesis again and subject us to that.
This is it. But yeah, I kind of feel like if AI worked in that space, you would load it onto the LMS, and the first thing it'd do was delete it. It would just come on and say, "This is all crap. Take it away." Like, at that point,
this is just bad.
Yeah. Until then, I feel like there is a need, but I guess my concern there is the fact that it sounds great. Think about that from a business perspective. So you're telling me we can utilize this AI and it will correctly identify the skills in all this e-learning, tag it, and make it easy for people to find. Wow, sign me up tomorrow.
Sure, prove that it works. Because the AI is not going to give you their metrics. AI is not going to come up with correct metrics for your stuff.
Yeah. But even like more broadly than that, so I think we've kind of hammered the issue a bit there. But in terms of solutions, so how do we fix this? Because I was very aware that I have a tendency to just hammer the problem. I'm not being rude. I'm trying to find the comments that were left on the thread. There we go. So earlier I posted up. So what do you think? With so much, there is loads of amazing experience out there in the industry, tons of reference material, networking groups, membership platforms, courses, advice, all sorts of stuff. How do we how do we as individuals start to address, as I call it, shiny stuff syndrome? The dash to use technology as quickly as possible. The moment technology comes into our industry, it's jumped on. You only have to look at, I'm still terrified by the number of companies that tell me, "Oh, we're bringing VR in for the first time. It's so exciting." And I just kind of want to scream. It's, so I went out to people. Let's have a look. Maybe.
Where did you post this?
I posted this on LinkedIn this morning. So I got some really cool responses. Matthew said, it's hard because it happens everywhere. I totally agree with that, by the way. The shiny stuff syndrome is not an L&D thing. I kind of said to him, it definitely happens everywhere. If you look
I
in my
literally got to write an
garage,
article for the Game Manufacturers Association about that exact topic.
exactly. You only got to look in my garage to see shelves of tools that were purchased for one job and yet remain unused. Really smart, really clever things that someone's made that I felt that I needed. But he suggested that there were two significant steps we could make. First, those with experience need to mentor newer people. Once you've tried to solve your problem with tech a few times, you learn it doesn't work. It's definitely true. Definitely true. Second is that mentorship can't be cynical. People will often jump from one extreme to the other. Then new people stop listening. You have to get experience, but still be open to new ideas. So that's quite interesting because I get that, because when we have this conversation, it
Mhm.
seems to devolve into, well, you're anti-technology, you're anti-progress, and I'm all about innovation in the future.
Right.
And that's not, certainly from my perspective, that's not the debate as I see it. I don't see new technology as innovative unless it's helpful.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
that's the thing that's missing is the vetting process.
Mm.
That's the shiny problem.
I
It's
think,
shiny, but nobody that's as far as we go in the conversation. Like you said, like what am I, and what I'm gonna use it for? What are you gonna use it for? Like, what are you gonna use your shelf for later? You had an idea now. Cool. How are you gonna use it afterwards?
mm.
And
And
it
often
has
I find, sorry, go on.
no, that was it.
No, I was gonna say, and often I find that that idea that someone has right now isn't actually a need. It's just a want.
Mhm.
I want to use VR because I'm excited about VR. Therefore, VR is a good idea.
Yeah, does this solve a
You know?
problem you have? If it doesn't solve a problem you have, does it create an efficiency? Does it create a semblance of value?
But yeah,
And that's going to end up leading. I'll double back on that when we get into like other L&Disms because that leads
mm,
into another L&Dism.
absolutely. But no, I definitely agree with you. I think another really good one came from Kevin Thorne. Actually, if you don't if you don't already follow Kevin Thorne, you totally should. He does awesome stuff. Um,
Follow
he
Kevin
does
Thorne.
comic books for learning. I know he does like some stop motion animation as well. He's
He's a
like
graphic
a
designer.
yeah,
Got
he
a
does
cool office.
amazing stuff. I think is it Learn Nuggets or something? His company,
Nugget Head. Nugget Head Studios.
Nugget Head Studios. There you go. Um, it does awesome stuff, and I think he actually kind of hit the nail on the head here, where he said the bigger issue is thinking about development before proper designing. Which involves critical analysis of the problem needing to be solved. He said the shiny stuff syndrome is real. And he encourages folks to put away even current technologies and think about the problem. Clearly identify current state, imagine its future state, what barriers or challenges need to be overcome. Thinking about tech too early in the process fogs creativity. Surprisingly, the solution may reside in one's current tech toolbox or less. I
So it's
love
not that tech. Yeah,
that
that's awesome.
balance.
It's not that tech will fix it. It's that we get stuck in tech did fix it, and we don't think outside of the box.
Absolutely.
Why
This is
we're all, it's why all our memory is going because we all know we have Google.
yeah.
So we don't have to test those. We don't have to test that part of our head anymore.
No, yeah, I think this is exactly it.
That's
Um,
killer.
what we got? Olga coming in the comments here. Let's go. New technology is sometimes like like Spanish startups. You moved away from your mum's house, and you and now you create a startup that does what your mum used to do for you. I like it. That's yeah. I think that's kind of exactly it.
Mhm.
It's technology for technology's sake, and then we label it progress or innovation or the future of learning and technology. Um, you know, and like I know, let's shoot some holes in. I feel like sometimes a golden child of L&D that I can't quite figure out why. XAPI. Now,
Okay.
XAPI is super clever. And when I first saw it, put my hands up, I got really excited about it. And I was like, this is amazing. I can see no reason why SCORM will survive this. I even wrote and published an article on the e-learning industry forum about how SCORM was dead, long live XAPI. It's probably still out there somewhere.
We had a whole episode on SCORM is dead, long live XP.
This is it. Yet SCORM's still here, and XAPI still has the most minute uptake rate out there. The reason is we don't need it. It's cool, it's clever, and completely freaking unnecessary. Like, we all compare, we're tracking bums on seats and completion numbers. We need to track better data. Great. Does better data really come through XAPI?
No.
I
mean, better. Well, better. The word better means a billion things. Is the problem.
This is it. But I would suggest if you want to start tracking data, it's not going to be like better data or more valuable data or data that really shows the impact of your learning. It's not going to be something you can use XAPI to pull out of some e-learning. It's going to be monitoring business level metrics or society level metrics, which just to share, XAPI is not going to be able to grab for you. It can do a lot of stuff, but it can't figure out that. That's what your BI team are doing. They're monitoring your business. So yeah, I feel like it's a good example of a bit of technology that you're kind of almost not allowed to question the validity of because people are so excited about it in our industry. And I mean, I don't particularly mind if it takes over from SCORM. Great. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
If I don't understand it, it must be smarter than me.
Well, this is it. But part of me says SCORM is pretty universal. Like every platform supports it. Yeah. So to actually get rid of that and replace it with something, there's got to be a really good reason to. And I don't see it. I see the cleverness. I see the incredible technological possibilities. I just don't see the value from our perspective. Because that would be
one of the things we were talking about were just the technical restrictions that SCORM leads to. I thought that was like one of the struggles that we had talked about having. Of it's just it relies on so much that's archaic that eventually, like, tech's gonna have to dumb itself down to keep SCORM in the loop. I feel like that's one of the things we talked about. I could be way the heck wrong on there. Ha 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 ha. I see. And we're back. It's been a while since we've had a pun episode.
Thank you. How you doing?
Nice I mean, you and I had some legitimate criticisms regarding SCORM and its implementation and the things that it did. I don't remember every detail of those, but I really feel like we were talking, like, one of the issues was just the archaic technology and that stuff is still moving forward.
Totally. But I think that but then prime example there, you look at things like trains, subway systems, all that kind of thing. They run on what we would describe as archaic technology. Old computers, terrifyingly on paper, old operating systems. But they do that because it works. It's reliable. It just sits there and goes. And I kind of feel like that's why we're not even talking the most recent versions of SCORM here. The most prevalent content requests, and I say some working at a content provider, is SCORM 1.2. Yep. Everyone wants it because it works on pretty much every freaking platform. Let's face it, it works on Moodle. And it's the only thing really that works on Moodle. And for better or worse, that is the predominant system. It would take an earth-shattering shift for that to no longer be the case. And I actually think there would be more energy put behind taping together the back end to keep SCORM running than there would be to change everything to move to XAPI. Now, I don't know whether that's really a good thing or a bad thing. Is this a bit like Flash, where everyone just clung to it for as long as possible? Possibly. But I just think the reality is the reason there hasn't been the big uptake that was predicted is that there's just the value doesn't exist. It's not there. No one can see it.
I've got to. I'm gonna kind of counter a little bit on that one, just because that mentality, like, the tech will fix it thing is one thing, but I feel like saying something like that also stunts innovation and says innovation is doomed for failure. And then as time goes on, you start realizing that the old technology, in fact, needs upgrades and needs a different onboarding process. And my proof is actually going to be Flash. Flash, being kind of the the video editor or video, it was essentially a glorified video viewer, for lack of a better term. Elements of integration and being able to bring JavaScript into browsers and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And then eventually transformed into HTML5, and that included most of the things that Java had. But Flash didn't lose any of its credibility, and Flash didn't become an issue because it was starting to look like outdated technology. Or it was it's not outdated technology. It was just stunted in its growth. It lost credibility. It started having issues because as technology grew, Flash couldn't meet up with the security standards.
Yeah.
And that's an example of that old technology. Eventually, what we're building now it will just not catch up. Now, I don't know if that's ever going to be the case with Scorm or something like that, but we knew that Flash was going to eventually be an issue. So HTML5 comes along and says, how about we innovate our coding in such a way that does everything that Flash did, which was really just JavaScript. Cool. Innovation, great. Good job.
But
I'd hate to see that with L&D technologies of, oh, it worked. Yay. And then 10 years, 15 years down the road, as you and I continue to complain that there are no standards in this industry because nobody wants to go through the change management process to implement them, we're still stuck on the, well, Scorm still works. Storyline still great. It functions. I don't have a good enough reason to not use it.
Yeah. But I
worry about that kind of stuff.
I think it will be the same kind of thing. It will need to be a security thing because unlike some other areas, we are not, like, L&D is, no matter what anyone says, a cost center. We do not ever make money. We just don't. We just spend unbelievable sums of it on stupid things like AI and VR headsets.
We protect revenue. I'll fight you to the death on that one.
That's cool, but that's still not making money.
It doesn't make.
That's still an expense in order to avoid a larger expense. That it's still not generating revenue. Sorry, yes, I should say it's not that we. I'm not saying that we are bad. I'm just saying that realistically, we don't make the company money.
Yes, Arrow doesn't go up.
Exactly.
There you go. Business numbers don't go high.
This is it. I like to view it as we don't make the boat go faster, but we make sure the boat doesn't slow down. That's the thing, So all of that aside, realistically, therefore, we don't get to do stuff just because it's good to do. We don't get to be the part of the business, realistically, whether we should or not is a different debate. We don't get to be the part of the business that says 10 years time, you'll be glad I did this. That's not our role in a business. Realistically, our role is to support the business within the parameters that we've got available to us. We can make suggestions, but we don't necessarily get to decide. And especially when it comes to technology, the IT team, I think, will be the one to eventually kill Scorm. Because I think it will be a security thing or a data movement thing or just a net framework thing. As the internet continues to evolve, I reckon more than anything, that's likely what it's going to end up being.
I definitely don't disagree with that at all.
I think they're better at killing stuff as well. Because when IT say this is going to die and so it needs to be replaced, the business just goes, okay.
Yeah, you need
because they have that credibility to say, you see everything that's working in your business. Yeah, you're welcome. Literally everything. That electronic lock that let you into the office today, you're welcome.
Right.
The till in the cafetiere just has coffee in it. The till in the canteen, you're welcome. Everything, your ability for your employees to work from home, you're welcome. L&D teams, on the other hand,
you know how to work from home. That's what IT is for.
Yeah, mandatory diversity training. you're welcome. You know, these kinds of things. It's a very different it's a very different kind of conversation. Hey Morgan, thanks for joining us.
Morgan.
IT security will XAPI before they kill Scorm.
Ha 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 ha.
Will XAPI. Oh, ouch.
See? Puns.
I did. I like those too. I did like your tin can reference as well. I like that. That was. I was speaking to someone yesterday who was talking about XAPI, but didn't know it was called tin can beforehand, and it just occurred to me that that is now an old thing. Like
Right,
there
Red
will
Hat.
be a lot of people that have joined the industry and learnt about XAPI and never heard it referred to as tin can. That's weird.
Red Hat.
Morgan. Oh, okay. Morgan was saying they'll kill XAPI. Um,
Oh,
I
I
don't,
thought it was I thought it was a
yeah.
pun.
I did always, and this is an interesting point actually. I did always wonder because XAPI seems very loose when it comes to data. Like the whole, you can send data anywhere you want. It's like I'm fairly certain that's not a good thing in any other bit of software. That's um, Luke. Okay, Luke never knew it was called tin can. Fair enough. In fairness, it's one of those bits of knowledge where it's like, is that useful? But I can't remember my wife's birthday reliably, but I can remember that the code name for the project behind XAPI was Tin Can. Like, you know, there's it's good on this stream, but in broader life, there are more important things to remember, let's be honest.
I mean, that's the fun of terminology. We've been calling it. It's been called Project Charm for what, 27 years now. I don't think people know it's Adobe.
Well, a lot of people seem to think as well that Charm is going to be the name of the authoring tool. So it's just Captivate.
No.
It's just another version of Captivate. But a lot of people have been saying that what they saw at that event looked fantastic. So we shall wait and see. Yeah. So I genuinely think that that's where that change will come from, and I don't think it will be a wow, whether it's to XAPI or whether it's to some other thing. Or even if it's just we can't use Scorn 1.2 anymore, we have to use Scorn 2004 4th edition or whatever. You know, the same way that it was the IT departments in businesses that killed off USB 1 and forced everything onto USB 2 because of concerns around power and security and all these other things.
I mean, clearly the industry is starting to recognize it. Like you said, content's gone and it's all tech companies. So someone's going to shove something down somebody's throat.
Sooner or later, I genuinely think so. But yeah, so I did get one other response on the thread earlier today, which was from our very own Olga, who's here or was here or might still be here. I don't know, in the chat. So thank you for responding. And she said, I genuinely agree that tech is not the solution to our problems, but I also like shiny new stuff. I'm totally on board there. I made this post very much knowing that I suffered from this affliction. And sometimes seeing what the new tech is about can inspire solutions to your current problems. I think I'd agree with that. If it's not used to patch them, but from a perspective of curiosity, it doesn't always have to be bad. As with anything else, there should be balance and intent. I would definitely agree with that. I think that there is. I think there's a difference between window shopping, which I do constantly in the industry. Where, like I said, I always show up at all these events and go around all these booths. I've never purchased an LMS based on the conversation at a booth, but I have walked away with notepads and cuddly toys and many, many pairs of socks. So, well, hey. But I do think that there is, I don't know, you have to go into that window shopping with the intent of, I'm just here to get an idea.
Yeah. Get a bug in my ear for things I can be thinking about.
Yeah, I think that's it. And I guess the best example I can give actually is, funnily enough, I attended a session run by Kevin, actually, Kevin Thorne over at the Learning and Development Accelerator. And I sat through the session, and he was talking about how anyone can draw. It's just that some people can't draw well, and that's got to do with practice. Everyone can draw when they're a child, but then some people stop and some people carry on. And the longer you carry on, the better at drawing you get. So, okay, fair enough. So he encouraged us to all go and draw. First thing I did was open up Photoshop on my Cintiq tablet and start drawing on there. And it was not working for me. I couldn't, I was just getting frustrated. And somebody says to me, "So just get a pen and paper or a pencil and paper or on that." And the moment I took the technology out of it, I still can't draw, but I found myself getting less frustrated. And I only did that because it was there in front of me. I thought, I'm going to practice my drawing, and like on my desk right in front of me is a massive Cintiq tablet with a pen next to it. So guess where I went to draw something? And that's kind of my hesitation around constant exposure to technology, and why, like, in my team, I sort of say, for as long as possible, I want every single project to exist on pen and paper.
I actually have
until you have to stop using pen and paper, that's where I want it to be. And
I have a saying for that.
Go for it.
I came up with a saying because I had a similar methodology, a similar problem, in multiple parts of my career. This phrase came from when I was working at eBay, though it started when I was working at Constant Contact. And the saying that I like to use is, calculus is easier than arithmetic.
Okay.
And the way that it works is, the more you know about something, like the more in depth you can get into something, the harder it is to go back to the basics. It's like the tier 2 paradox. I get something that comes into tier 2 support, like this happened in Constant Contact. I get something into tier 2 support, and I'm thinking so far into the weeds of like coding and API, and is there a bug that maybe the IT crowd had it right of, did you just try turning it off and turning it on again?
Yeah.
And you take so long to get to the simplest answer because that answer doesn't seem like you're worthy of it, or it's worthy of you, I should say. So yeah, I think calculus immediately, and sometimes it's just as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. And I do it so much, and that's kind of what I want to draw something. Get out the rig.
Yeah. This is
Just
it.
Get a pen, buddy.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. Just as we're on the hour line in this episode, so just a couple of quick reminders before we go back into the conversation. First of all, if you're enjoying the show, please do consider hitting the like button. It really helps us out here on the channel. Second, I'd like to say a massive thank you to all the recent people who have joined the channel's Patreon page. It's fantastic. It's allowing me to test a lot of new stuff. There's a lot of testing videos coming up. Next week, I'm going to do a comparison between a couple of like the book preview courses that are out there, or preview products like Blinkist and Get Abstract, things like that. That's only possible because of the support we get there. And lastly, just a reminder that we do have next year a new IDTX conference. That conference is currently being worked out and taking shape. It's going to be a bit different. There are going to be 3 streams in this year's conference. There will be the leadership stream, where we talk about leadership stuff and thought-provoking nonsense. There's going to be
stream.
Sorry, the
thesaurus stream on words.
Yeah, absolutely. There is going to be the developer stream, where it's just all content development all the time, be that e-learning, video, audio, all that great hands-on stuff. And there will be the what we're kind of currently we're dubbing it the instructional design stream, but we need to figure out a better, it's an accurate name, but it's not a catchy name for it, so we need to think about that. But that will really be looking at learning design specifically, as opposed to development or leadership in the space. The leadership in the space will also contain things like learning science and debunking and all that kind of exciting stuff. If you want to be involved as a speaker, there's going to be a request going out at some point, probably sort of mid to late November, for people to apply. But if you're here in the stream, get a head start. If you're interested, let me know and what sort of thing you'd be interested in doing. You'll be more than welcome. That's
I was
it.
thinking about it of like, what would I do? Because I haven't really. I'm kind of moving a little bit away from L&D proper. And when I started on this, like, hey, there's suddenly a need for documentation, I jumped in. I was thinking like that could be a good talk of like L&D never leaves you. and bringing L&D into everything you do. Absolutely. In a way that doesn't drive everyone insane.
Totally. I appreciate that. That's
I actually was thinking about the little period of time where I was unemployed. I was thinking about a video what the heck, like a video portfolio of sorts. And I wanted to do a skit where I had like a whole PowerPoint presentation and how to adjust like the thermostat of the house. And then my wife would yell at me. I was like, could somebody please hire him because he's doing this every day?
Nice.
I thought it'd be neat, but
yeah,
I might jump in on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As I say, it's kind of the reason behind the separation was there was some feedback last time that people really liked this, but then they were kind of skipping that and they forgot to come back, so they missed stuff and all that kind of thing. So the idea really, you don't have to stay in a stream. Like if you go to the leadership one, you're not stuck in it. You can flip between session to session if you want to. But what it also means is that, you know, if you know that you're very focused on X and Y, but you are not in any way interested in T, then you don't have to go to T. You know, leadership stuff is a prime example of if you're not interested in it, you're really not interested in it. Like it's a super, if you know, if you are an e-learning developer, why would you want any of that stuff? You want to do development, you know, and you might just want to stick in that lane. That's fine. So we wanted to provide for that in next year's conference. So there's that. Hey Phil, nice to have you with us. Thanks for joining. Diving back into some comments then, Luke said an example where tech isn't needed: train tickets on your phone. Oh, I cannot tell you how much I agree with this. Paper train tickets don't run out of battery or become inaccessible. This is
the environment.
This is it. And I say this as someone who was incredibly pro digital train tickets not too long ago. When they first came out, I just thought, yes, this makes so much sense. No more little things in my hand, save the trees, better, just better in every possible way. However, I think they have misjudged the content of this stream when they decided to send this junk here.
Hey!
Get rid of them.
But they're waiting.
There we go. Users' messages have been hidden. They should disappear, I think. They're not waiting anymore. There we go. Sorry to disappoint you all. But yeah, super good for the environment, super convenient. What happened to me was that I got to the train station, which was a super quiet, out of the way country train station that didn't have scanners for your stupid modern electronic ticket. Oh, thank you for joining us on Patreon, Olga. That's very kind of you.
And I'm on Patreon. I forgot I'm on your Patreon.
And what was I saying? Yeah. So there I was, unable to get through the barriers, no member of staff in sight. So I was there going, what the hell do I do? The eventual answer was to climb over the barriers. But that's not really a good user experience, you know? But no, I agree with you fully, Luke. It's a complete, yeah, I get the intent. The intent was good. The intent was very good, but someone should have done some user testing. Someone should have walked around everywhere on the network and gone, "That's a problem. That's a problem." You know,
Well, we got the
before.
Verizon. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
First date with my wife, with my now wife. Trying to be a hot shot. Got a new phone. Got a new Android. Talking up the old Android because it's not an iPhone. Happy about that. We eventually got to see a movie. We got to see Wonder Woman, and I'm like stoked. I buy tickets. I'm like, hey, cool. I wasn't quite wanting to do dinner and movie for this, but whatever. That's just kind of where it landed. At least it was natural. Was feeling like a hot shot. Again, talked up the phone that wouldn't connect to the internet. So day one with my now wife, I had to tether onto her hotspot on her iPhone after talking about how much I don't like iPhones in order to get movie tickets. And so, yeah, I feel you that not everything needs to be on the digitals.
Yeah.
She still married me. I don't know why.
It was.
Oh, I forgot. There's other news though on that front. It's just a quick announcement for everybody. We're expecting. Speaking of that, we got to do our baby announcement pictures. Wife and I.
Exciting stuff. Congratulations.
Yeah. So we're having a little ID update whining in the background.
That's
anyway. That's my side part. I forgot you had those. Speaking of technology that is not needed.
Yeah, well, yes, exactly.
Or wanted, perhaps.
There we go. No, massive congratulations. That's a huge deal.
I want to touch up on something you said earlier real quick, because this was funny to me.
Go for it.
Which was and I won't try to we'll see, hopefully this doesn't make it into a big thing. But it was the number you were talking about at the very beginning of the stream, that you went to conferences and the number of content booths that went down. And I had to in the back of my head I'm laughing. Because whereas you only have like 10 at any given convention, there's still like a billion of them online.
Yep. I'm
still getting pinged constantly for it. But where that leads me is to the accountability of that part of the industry. And I'm gonna jump back into my hobby space, where I've got trading card games that go out to various conventions and whatnot and have literally nothing to show. They just exist there with the hope that you don't think or ask too much and just skate on by and appreciate that we don't really have a lot to show. So, this is just awareness. Just know that we're a thing.
Yeah.
And I feel it's a little bit, I laugh because I've seen just so much garbage content creation companies out there. To see them dip so hard is another one of those, like, maybe you guys don't want to be held accountable. In a setting, in the actual lion's den of people who know what they're talking about. Because that's something that I've been seeing. Like, we had how many we talk about this with academies and various courses of, they sit in the underbelly of social media and whatnot, and it's because they don't want people who know what they're doing to start asking them questions.
Yeah.
At least that's my theory, and I feel like that'd be easy to prove. But I found that kind of interesting, of like that part of the business that is another one of those, especially during COVID, that we looked at as kind of a junk part of the industry, is fading into the background, Homer Simpson style, sneaking into the bushes, and then coming back out as technology. The technology shirt. Not to say that that's what's happening, but that part of the narrative is slunk away a little bit. That's kind of wild to me.
Yeah, I think there is a mix. I think there are. Yeah, I think there's probably three groups. There is that, definitely, without shadow of a doubt. I think there are content companies who have realized that the days of more content being the demand are going to disappear. And so they're diversifying. And that's where I'm thinking of big players, mind you, like Learning Pool. Like, there was a time when Learning Pool were like, we will build your content for you. And now they're like, we will build your content for you. And we have a content library. And we have an authoring tool. And we have a couple of platforms for you to choose from. And we'll consult with you to improve your L&D practices. You know, that's a big move over time. Then
I think that's another stupid L&Dism. I think it's not that specifically, but there is a universal framework that we can follow. That's one that I struggle with, because I see like everybody's got a new framework. Oh, we're in digital. I've got a new whole 8-step thing. It's not necessarily like a learning style or philosophy more than it's we analyze every element, and this is now what the future is, and it's a framework that we just set into. That all the comments, that's how content creation was sold.
Yes.
Originally.
Yeah, no, I'd
here was the framework that we had.
Yeah.
Like, shut up.
But I feel like that's part of why the demand for mass content has actually started to decline. And it's because L&D teams, to their credit, I think as an industry, one thing we have actually done is realize that one approach to every piece of content is not right. And that some content should be digital, but some content shouldn't. Some content needs a bit of a mix. Some content needs to, whatever it might be. We are becoming, I think, more contextually aware of how to approach problems. And part of that, I think, is coming with maturity. We are no longer the baby industry in the world. We're kind of in our, maybe our teenage years at best, but still, you know, I say that in terms of the modern average L&D person. I know I'm about to get shouted at going, instructional design was created, you know, pre-World War II. Yes, it was. That's absolutely true. However, as an industry, we have not matured well.
No.
Parts of the industry have. I think that should be stressed. There were people 30 years ago that were going, we need to move to a performance-focused approach to creating workplace learning. Unfortunately, the broader industry has not listened to them, or too little of the industry has listened to them, in my opinion.
It leads to the same, I mean, it's the same answer as tech will fix it.
Yes, yeah, this is it.
Vet better. Ask deeper questions. Don't be afraid that those might not be, you know, connected to the thing that's in front of you.
But why has that not been the approach taken? Because it's difficult. It requires effort and upskilling and time and inevitable initial failure.
Requires somebody to say, no, that's not going to work, and if somebody else not be offended by it.
This is it.
I worked hard on that thought. Shut up. Work well.
We're just old enough as an industry to show ID. Excellent. Love it. Yeah, it kind of feels that way.
That's so deep. I hate how deep that is.
It kind of feels like we've just crested that hill where it's like we suddenly look backwards and go, oh my God, did I do that? Like that embarrassing moment where you're just old enough to realize how much of a knob you were as a teenager. Like, you kind of go, oh no, don't. And then someone tells you a story and you're like, oh, I don't want to pretend that's me. I don't want to believe that's me, rather. You know.
Like that. That's me. Hide in the chair. So it's just a floating hand.
Yeah, this is it. But I feel like that's good. I feel like we've needed that. And I feel like the reduction in mass sale of mass content is the first sign of that happening. Which is great, don't get me wrong, but now it needs to continue. The other group, by the way, I think in that is that there are content providers who are quite happy being content providers, but they will no longer be the great big, you know, behemoths of the industry that they used to be. You know, I think we're going to see much smaller content focused organizations, which is fine.
It's good. It's necessary in any industry.
Yeah,
those smaller little fringe spoiler groups force the mainstream guys to think about better ways to do things and to innovate.
And I think they're going to have to somewhat pivot to be more adaptive. I don't think you're going to be able to just offer one thing. You know, I think you're going to have to be a bit more kind of as the industry becomes more context driven, you're going to have to become more context driven. You can't
Mhm.
just be we deliver X no matter what the problem is. The answer is X. That's not going to fly anymore. In the same way that before we collectively decided that 20-minute e-learnings with assessments on the end weren't the solution to everything, we now have to relearn that apparently about 5-minute e-learnings with assessments on the end. They're not the answer either. It's some kind of combination of different things. Who knew, right? None of it's new thinking, but I feel like we're just starting to see it actually be actioned, and that's what's driving it. But I do think that what you said applies to some. I had a really funny chat earlier in the week with another person who's a head of learning design for another company, and we were just having a laugh about the need to push out content to the point where you're pushing out content that you know isn't good. Like, what
Hold on.
the hell is the point?
I'm that person, but I'm just gonna hide my head so you don't know it was me. I've had to do that a couple times.
But you're not a content provider. But I mean to
I'm
market.
not okay.
Like,
As a whole company.
Yeah, as in-house individuals, we should do that actually, because to an extent, I should quantify that point. There are two reasons. One, you know it's not quite there, but there is an immediate need, and you can iterate. At which point, the important thing is to get something out there that you can iterate based upon. That is not.
Yes.
Can be a good way of working. There are situations in which it's not good, like compliance training, prime example. The flip side of that is it can be necessary to put out something that you're unhappy with if the business has said you will do it. Because despite all our, we're the heroes of the story and I'm like Robin Hood and blah, 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 blah. If the CEO says jump, we all say how high because we want to get paid. So
you're saying more like the specific, like a business model is like the sausage factory L&D.
Exactly. If as a content organization, you're pushing out content just in order to go, we put out content, aren't we great? And they're going, no. Like, I would rather a content company massively scale back what it pushes out, but push out the top quality content that its users need, rather than go content. Which I think is the shift that we are seeing. And I think that's why we no longer see the kind of behemoth growth. It's no longer one company dominating the content space. There are a number of big players who have all diversified into non-content products, platforms, authoring tools, consulting, whatever. And the pure content companies are now much, much smaller. And I think actually that's a really good thing. Because it means that the industry does not get overpowered with one single approach to content, as I think it has done in the past.
We say the same thing about tools.
Yeah, totally.
Yay, smaller tools.
Absolutely.
Yay, evolve.
Just lower your damn prices. Sorry, I'm putting together a big map of pricing on authoring tools at the minute, and there's a disturbing trend of new, exciting, smaller tools that I would love to recommend, but are just charging $1 gazillion a year. And so it's just like, I can't recommend that. It's a ripoff. I get that small businesses have like development overheads and all this stuff to make up for in a smaller user base, etc. But you've still got to charge what your product is actually worth. You can't just pick a number out of what you wish it was worth,
Yeah, and you also have to appreciate like who's actually going to be able to use it. Especially why can some smaller company have a freaking contractor tier or something? For the love of God.
This is what Evolve did. That's why I originally
I've dug in, and I've actually gotten to dig into the thing because I've had a very specific reason to. So I'm like, hey. All right, so sorry, what specifically did they do contractor tier wise?
Well, when Evolve came out, you could sign up as a freelancer and get it for £5 a month. It was freaking awesome.
What?
They took it away later on, once it grew, but to establish it, that's what, to my mind,
millions.
You want to know why Evolve took off among contractors? That's why. You offered us a great authoring tool at £5 a month. And you know what?
Hey, Chameleon, go do that.
Yeah. Thing is that like what we all did was walk into businesses and say, "Hey, you should get Evolve," because we were bought into it. You know, it was, and businesses loved it because the business pricing wasn't outrageous either. You know,
Yeah.
they weren't trying to justify, oh my God, $2,000 a year per user or
Yeah.
whatever the hell Elucidat's charging these days.
And those are the tech will fix it thing, right? We're talking about people not wanting to onboard to new technologies, or or things like XAPI not being able to be onboarded. It's because you have to make such a significant financial investment
Yeah.
that the only reason you kind of want to is because you feel you need to make it worth its value, and you're so focused on that you don't actually think about the value you can get from it.
Totally.
Holy crap! Do it the other way. Good job, Evolve. That's correct. Har. I saw that one coming, Cortez. I saw that one.
Oh dear, that's don't say that. I'd like to think they do. They just don't know how. It's like
Everybody's just trying to go after that. Everyone's trying to go after that corporate contract. I'm like, stop. Or what they're doing is they're trying to go after the content creation companies that don't exist as much anymore.
Yeah.
But like, hey, if you're cranking out content as much as humanly possible, if you're putting 100 courses a year out, $2,000 a year is nothing.
This is it. Whereas I think for most in-house businesses, authoring tools are often taken on at the advice of the people in the business that are going to end up using them. Like, I think of the dynamic of a lot of L&D teams. The L&D manager probably has a few people in the L&D department that they trust the view of in terms of the view of the wider industry and technology and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I know this.
So get in with those influencer people. To me, yeah, I think Interland did a fantastic job with Evolve on that front, because there are very few authoring tools that have quite such a happy, to be honest, like happy user base that chat with each other and get them involved. Super exciting. Like Evolve have a like user improvement group just made up of people who use the tool. So come and tell us what's wrong with it and how it can improve, all this sort of stuff. It's
when you kind of have that kind of fringe level with good accessibility, you get basically a cult following. Welcome to Linux.
Exactly.
It's the same exact idea, and I love that. I love that that's a thing because it's people like, this is cheap enough that I get to just play around. And I can play around and I can ignore it for a little bit and come back and see what everybody's done, as opposed to I spend $1,200 a month on Articulate and or $1,200 a year on Articulate.
Yeah.
And all that I really get out of it is mostly pretty much ignored garbage public forums. Cool.
Yeah.
Neat.
Yeah. Like I've Learning Heroes is a tricky thing for me. I love the concept. I love the idea of community, sharing ideas and helping each other out, and the e-learning heroes challenges. But that should not be an alternative to proper documentation.
Olga's got you.
What we got isn't the same as the e-learning heroes and their response about features on the rover. Yes, indeed. Yeah, everything's just on the roadmap. It's totally already on the roadmap.
If you're a gamer, if anybody out there is a gamer, it's Blizzard, Activision, and the word soon. Which now people will ask on the forums about something, and the answer will always be soon. Period.
I'll be honest.
Which became such a meme that now everybody just puts soon with an asterisk, as if there's a footnote that's real important. But there's no
one should talk to Blizzard Activision. Like, if there's ever a business that should just be mothballed and never come back, that's the business. Like, terrible company. I'm sorry. It couldn't come up on the stream and me not say it. And yes, it does sound like an open source spot.
That's that. I'm giving you Evolve, but I'm not giving you that one. I'm not going to give you that one.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. Like everyone knows, I'm a big fan of open source software. I wish if we were going to if we were going to have more technology in the space, that's where I'd like to see the technology growth. I'd like to see more open source learning solutions, like Adapt. And I get that sucks for the business because it's not a business. It's inherently loss making. But if I could say what I wanted, that would be it. So let's loop back round, because we've kind of gone through a series of topics there. So I think I would agree with everything that was shared on the LinkedIn post about,
Mhm.
how do we overcome the kind of shiny stuff syndrome approach to tech. I think the biggest thing for me actually is listening to the people who have identifying who we should be listening to as an industry is a big part of this, because one of the things that I notice about maybe some of the people that are very popular in the industry, but maybe we shouldn't be listening as closely to, is they drive tech. They are technology people. It's all about XAPI. It's all about the latest tool. It's all about the cool new platform they discovered. And that's fun and interesting and fine. But I kind of worry that we lose sight of the well-established, proven to work stuff that people have spent their careers creating and
Mhm.
practicing and documenting. Prime example, I went to, or actually I hosted a webinar with the Learning Network this week with Will Tullheimer, and he recommended a couple of books, but one of them was Criterion Referenced Test Development, Technical and Legal Guidelines for Corporate Training. This is a big old book that contains things like the formula for adjusting test scores for multiple choices questions to allow for how many they got right by guessing versus knowing. This is, by any human being standard, an incredibly dull. How many page book? 500 or 451 page book. However, within about 10 minutes of reading the first bit of it, I learned I would say I learned something, like something useful, something that I am already thinking about. How do I put this into action? Something that made me consider and potentially change part of my practice after 10 years in the industry.
I love the philosophy of questioning.
This
I
is
love
it.
that kind of stuff. It's so interesting.
I think
I
that
wish more of it.
it's those people we need to be paying attention to. It's those conversations we need to have. It's those books we need to read, those webinars we need to attend, not necessarily the ones where someone's very, very good at SEO and getting their website popular and marketing it, and then delivering a message, usually with like an affiliate link at the end of the show,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah,
or
right.
pushing a technology or whatever it might be. Um,
And I
so I
think that's the way
guess,
we educate it also. I mean,
mm,
when L&D becomes the marketing tactic, the marketing strategy problem that it is right now, which is leads to the garbage that it has, that's where you get into, the academies and the shiny and the that crap. Whereas something like that, I would never position a book like that as you've got to learn this time-tested, holy crap, amazing thing. I would just put it in practice. I would just be like, "Hey, I'm gonna run an experiment on you based on the stuff in this book, and I'm not gonna tell you it's from this book, but I'm gonna run an experiment on you and let people discover like that was new, that was a thing." Like that's a marketing tactic. Like that's really it's not even a marketing tactic. That's just pure psychology. Of it's the same reason that L&D used to start with let's open with a question, right? Because now you get people's minds like thinking and you get them like seeing that way, and the second they have like kind of an aha moment on their own that
mm,
you haven't told them is an aha moment, that's when they start paying a lot more attention, and that's when you start selling them on actual ideas, and they're like, oh, it's not that I'm interested in this because you've told me it's the next big thing. I'm interested in it because you literally I experienced that it changed something in my head.
yeah,
um that's good street cred. We don't do enough of that because you only have 280 characters on Twitter.
this is it, and yeah, that's why whether it's, I mean, to be honest, I think the thing I would say there is the groups that you're part of in L&D unfortunately shape greatly what you're exposed to. Um, like the number of people who I spoken to recently in the run up to and following that webinar didn't know who Will was really
Mhm.
surprised me, because when I was getting sort of a little bit further on in the industry, it was like you got to know this, you got to follow this work, this is vital, this is important stuff. When he came up with LTEM, the sort of 8-tiered approach to learning, what do you call it? Evaluation is the word I'm struggling with for some reason tonight. It was kind of hammered into me that is essential. You need to read the book, you need to read the paper, you need to use this model. So, in your head, you just assume, oh, well, that's standard across the industry then. But then so many other people kind of have been pushed down the route of Kirkpatrick, which was driven by a very different sort of philosophy of thought within L&D.
That
Kind of shorter, simpler, quicker, that kind of drumbeat, which I think certainly has a place, but we lose nuance. It's a funny thing. Tom, we've spoken a bit recently, actually, at World of Learning, I think, if I remember rightly. Maybe not, though. I could be making that up. I don't know. I can't remember. Apologies that I can't remember, but I think I recognise your name. Companies just bought Evolve. Oh, yes, I think we did have this exact conversation. So we're quite new to it. Is there any way we can see the art of the possible? I actually have do you know what? It's only on Evolve's own website, but there is a showcase, and there are a couple on there. One particularly by a designer called Shirlene Wong. She is phenomenal. In terms of her approach to design, UI, and she created one about buying fresh fish. Now, it's not the world's most exciting topic in the world, but it's a beautiful example of what of one thing that Evolve can do. Super simple, super clean, very website-esque. I will endeavor to find a link and share it. Bear with me a moment. I will need to go out of focus in order to do so.
Oh no, he's out of focus. It's just me now. It's just me.
I mean, I'm still here. I'm just fuzzy.
It's just me. He's gone. It's like Die Hard 4, where Bruce Willis covers the covers the camera.
Love
and
it.
starts talking in normal voice, thinking that like when you cover the camera, the mic doesn't work.
Searching for a link in Slack. This can only go well.
In the case of the industry needs 100 wrong directions to come up with one right direction. Could the question be how we can actually distinguish which is the right direction? That one's so hard because the problem is, all right, here's going to be where I like the idea if the industry worked as one, but it doesn't. So the industry is going to try to push up. It's not that the industry needs 100 wrong directions. It's that the industry is trying 100 wrong directions, but they're all telling you it's the right one. And that part sucks. But that leads into Phil's. So to challenge to see your thoughts, you said about narrowing who we listen to. Is that not the same as having a small pool of content creators, one view, one approach? And that then you become like the gatekeeping. That's the gatekeeping, and that's what you get into the pools of. You need to be following these people. They are the ones. They are your sources of truth. I really don't know if his answer outside of I really just want one site that focuses on results. Like it's hard to argue with actual things that you can prove. And that's the issue with 100 approaches and even 100 content creators is that there's no proof in any of them.
Yeah.
Nobody takes it that far because as long as I sold you on the methodology, I don't care what happens. Failure is that's your problem afterwards.
Yeah, and I don't think that I would ever advocate for a smaller pool of who you take guidance from and leadership on. I firmly believe in, take a little bit from everyone, but I do think a little more scrutiny, a bit of challenge, a bit of prove it. Like, give me something that backs up what you're saying. Don't just tell me that it's awesome. Or exciting or new. Tell me why. When I say that, books like this, they carry weight for me because the more you read into them, they justify everything they say. Like if you want to go right down to it, there are where's the bit at the back? I can't find it. Come on. All the data is there. They don't just print their point, they print their proof. And I'm not saying everything needs to come in the form of a massive freaking textbook style book. It can equally come in the term of being open to conversation, being open to challenge, and showing your thought, or delivering both sides. We so often kind of see kind of stuff that just absolutely extols the virtues of something, but never then goes back and says, however, let's look at the flip side of this. We kind of we can lose that sometimes. We need both sides, and I feel like as well there's the difference. Like this channel, everything that I do is very much opinion based. In my experience, in my opinion, this is what I think. It's not extol. I never try and extol it as I am right and you should adjust your way of thinking accordingly. Because I don't have the evidence to back that up. I can't make those claims. But there are those who have done this, maybe longer, maybe shorter, but do have proof of something. And I think that's where we should be lending our ear to more. Not totally. We shouldn't ignore other people. Anecdotal comment is good. But we should maybe be saying, okay, so two people have said something. One has a mountain of evidence. The other has their opinion. Now, maybe don't ignore the opinion, but remember to treat it as opinion, not evidence backed. I won't say truth because it's not truth, but you know what I mean.
I wish I could find. Dang it! It's because I'm behind a paywall. I'd love to show like my pre and my post confidence surveys, pre-training, post-training, because that's the other thing is that we don't do the follow-ups like at a point where it should matter, right? Like I trained you on something. How do you feel? How well trained do you feel? I felt very trained because it's been 5 minutes. Versus let's look 6 months later, which is something that I liked implementing in other companies of I'm going to do a follow-up of all the stuff that I trained you on and see was this relevant to your job. And I wish I had some of my old surveys, but I've been booted from those companies because probably wise to not have me a part of those after I left the company. I'd love to try to find some proof of some stuff.
This point, though, Phil, is quite interesting. Maybe L&D need a group of great peaks to create the equivalent of the Agile Manifesto, not to set in stone, but at least some clear, unified guiding principles. This has happened twice in L&D, interestingly. Neither times did it take off, unfortunately. We had the Serious E-Learning Manifesto, which was led by Clark Quinn, I believe. It built up a little bit of steam, and then unfortunately it never really took off as it needed to. But you've also got the ISPI, the International Society for Performance Improvement, which kind of has this whole thing about how do we align everything we do with improving performance in organizations, which surely should be the core of the decisions we make, the content we create or don't create, or whatever it might be. But I agree that what we don't have is widespread adoption of something like the Agile Manifesto. I think it would be very difficult to do, but certainly worth it. I think what you'd have to do is get a group of people who were undeniably like the right people to do it, which in our industry I think is tricky, because like a lot
of other industries doing this better. The LED at this front, the alignment. God, I want to say DevOps. I want to say DevOps Agile for software development. Like Agile is a system that works great for development.
Yes,
like software, like software development, and you can prove that. You can absolutely prove that it works. And like the scrums and the sprints and the way that they handle milestones and the way that they track work, you can prove that it's more efficient and things move freely. That would be my example of an industry that does better when it comes to alignment on a philosophy.
Yeah, very fit. Phil just kind of said that. This is actually this is Phil's space these days. He's left the L&D farmyard and joined the adults around the table in products. It's but it's interesting that if we make jokes out of the fact that instructional designer, it's very difficult to justify what you do if friends and family ask or whatever it might be. People in product don't have that problem. They know what they do and they're able to define it very clearly. Like, it's not, it's quite stark when you see an industry like that, where simply they just don't allow muddling around with stuff. It's too expensive. It's too time consuming. And that's kind of why I've talked a lot recently about, like, which I picked up from Phil originally, product mindset and thinking about the things we create as a product. Stop thinking that we're creating learning. We're not. We're creating a product. The goal of that product is to help someone learn, but we don't create learning, nor do we own learning. We can create and we can own a product. And I think if we started thinking like that and adopting some of those principles, it would work well. Agile, interestingly, is something that I think, because it works so well for development, doesn't actually work that well in L&D. L&D is too. It would need to become more. Don't want to say
structured.
Yeah,
yeah.
It would need to seriously sort itself out before it was really able to implement Agile.
My problem with Agile for L&D is that every step of the process can be adjusted and measured on opinion. And that's always the problem with L&D, is that saying, it's like art. It's like putting a piece of art together. You're never really done because someone's always going to have an opinion on something, which is why product and software dev works so well for Agile, because it's either done or it's not. It works or it doesn't. You can draw that line in the sand, and there are no lines in the sand with L&D outside of, can people watch this or not?
See, that's like, I think that's where I slightly disagree. I think this is part of the problem, and why L&D sucks. Is that we worry about whether or not people like it. That's irrelevant. I don't care what their opinion is. If I am asked to train people to correctly enter details into a system, the only metric that really matters, is whether or not they can do that job and do it well.
I can agree with that. Okay. I'll take that, because I got fired for that once, so yeah. I feel you.
I do agree, however, that L&D thinks its job is to be loved, and that our job is to make everyone super happy to work here, and that our job is to make everyone feel included, and that our job is to make everyone, whatever else goes into the list. And it's not. Like, it's just not. It's impossible. No one can do that job. Like, that's why we say, it's never completed, or we just have to keep going at it and changing and changing and changing. You can't do that. And that's why I think actually thinking about L&D like product people would help us massively. Because at the start, we would need to say, what does success look like? This. Cool, we're delivering that. Not any variation of that. And once we've delivered that, we have achieved success, we're moving on.
And that's the other reason L&D sucks, is that we don't get to be stakeholders and SMEs of our own industry. That's the struggle that I have because XYZ stakeholder knows what needs to be taught, and they've created a PowerPoint before. They have a strong understanding of what learning looks like for individuals. That's always been an issue for me. The politics of me getting to say, I actually know how to teach people stuff. And then turning around and saying, well, I know this more, so you would think that I would be able to do this better. Like, I know the subject matter better. You would think I'd be able to do this better. And becomes this fight. That's what I've always dealt with. And that's very much corporate. I own that as so corporate versus, freelance one-off content, all that other stuff.
I also think it's a tricky thing to deal with. It takes a lot of setup to really deal with that well. You like at me. You really like at me. Yes,
you've done that one before.
Yeah, but I always like a Likert scale, or a Likert Likert scale. It's yeah, they're it's another L&Dism, isn't it? We need to know some information. I know, we'll do a Likert scale. I'm guilty of this. I'm sure we all are. How effective did you find this course between a 1 and a 10? Because the learner will obviously be a great judge of how effective it was.
Hey, would you recommend this training to a colleague?
Do you know what? Barely a week goes by where I don't recommend a good bit of e-learning to a member of my friend or family circle. Yeah, no, obviously not. So
that measures success.
Yeah. But yes, I think it's super tricky. I don't think there's an easy solution. I love the idea of some kind of accepted manifesto about a clear approach to workplace L&D. I struggle to see which organization or which group of people could actually make it happen. Like,
with credibility, that they would be the ones
I would want to make it happen, but I just don't know if it would actually get the uptake it would need to make it everyone knows this.
Yeah.
Like, we're at a space where parts of the industry still think there's a debate to be had about learning styles. We're at a space where people are discovering the idea of spaced repetition. We're discovering stuff we knew in the 1950s. Great. That's that's where we are right now. So to go from that to a somewhat universal manifesto for workplace learning is a big jump.
Bloom means new. It's got to be new if it's named Bloom. Bye.
Yeah. See, that's a bit of a bummer, but I love the idea. I would love to see it. I really would.
End on a downer note.
Yeah, why not? No, let's not end on too much of a down note. What's good? What's good? What's good?
Well, all right. So let's just blast through it then real quick. Nothing in Camtasia, nothing in Storyline, nothing really anywhere. People sort of like Charm, but it's kind of the same stuff that we've always seen. At least from what I saw, there was nothing new because it's Q4 and everybody's in a code freeze. Okay, now we got to end on something happy.
There's a new version of Snagit coming out. Woo!
Right.
I mean, Snagit's awesome, but it's not particularly exciting. I realize that.
I gotta use a Mac for work. I've used Mac for work, and I just want to take a screenshot and do anything with it. And I'm I would take anything for Snagit. How do Apple's not? They fail on so many fundamentals.
Yeah, I try. I really want to be more. Oh, Apple's not that bad. It's fine. But oh my god. Oh, Phil, what a question. Any thoughts on the Learning Awards shortlist? Some interesting companies in Learning Provider of the Year. Oh, do you know what? There was one company I was just so pleased to see on the list, and they're on the list for Startup of the Year, but I'm going to get the rest of the list up as well, actually. The Learning Awards shortlist. Sorry, I'm going very blurry and not blurry today. Learning Awards finalists. 2023 finalists. So let's have a look through here. Where's the startup of the year? So yeah, the startup of the year, guys, that I was so happy to see on there were Solved Together. Solved Together, startup of the year. Solved Together are a company that I think everyone should take a look at. Their approach to working is just fantastic. They align very closely to Nick Shackleton-Jones's approach that he outlines in his book. But they go into organizations and they basically conduct experiments. Like, part of the thing is that we're going to go out, we're going to conduct these content and support experiments to see what helps with your people, what works, what doesn't, and then we'll provide the solutions, whatever we're there working with. It's so refreshing to see a company take that kind of approach. They embrace the whole idea of MVP followed by iteration until we get to where we need to be. The moment we get to where we need to be, we stop. That's it. It's all about delivering the least intrusive solution that achieves the change that's needed. And it's so good. It's everything that we kind of say, oh, I wish L&D would focus on being more like this. Bam, there it is in one company, and they are doing phenomenally well. I was so pleased to see them recognized in this list. Other stuff, let's have a look. I'm not really interested in apprenticeships. Apprenticeships are very important. I just know nothing about them, so can't really pass judgment. Learning team of the year, it's all internal companies, so again, don't really know anything about them. Digital transformation of the year, there's a VR company in there. That's interesting. Learning Technologies Award. Nice to see Sponge in there. Logitech. There we go. That's interesting.
What learning technologies do they have other than stuff that can't focus?
This is for doing something. It's not just because you've got a product in your product school.
Oh.
So usually you enter with like a specific project that you go, hey, look at this.
Okay,
that's very excited about it. A lot of these, because they're internal. But Mind Tools for Business, that's interesting. It's interesting to see Mind Tools in there. Mass Marketing up for another award. All the usual names as well. Learning Pool, Leo, QA. Interesting. Learning Pool, Leo, QA, 3 content companies that have all diversified significantly. And yet are still making it into these award showcases, just kind of showing that, you know, you really can diversify and stay good at stuff. Let's have a look. Yeah, I mean, I think those are the ones. Once again, I'm apparently not going to be learning leader of the year. That's fine. I get it. It's not a problem. Or learning professional of the year. Not a problem. I won't take it personally. Learning provider of the year. The only one here that I have a feeling about is Raise the Bar. And it's because I don't think they should be there. And that's only because I nearly went on one of their courses earlier this year. And I say nearly because I went to like you're going to sign up for a course, so come to this like onboarding cohort, chatty, learn more about the course. And they started telling me about the important role that NLP would play. And it was that kind of, I'm out, see you later moment.
I know that feeling.
You know, they may well have said, so before you start, we'd like to figure out what learning style you are so we can apply it to your, you know, it was that level of just like, nope, see you later for me. And I get that maybe the rest of their courses and maybe even the rest of that course is like phenomenal and effective and great. I'm sorry, in 2022, if you're training NLP, just no, sorry, no. I don't care. It not only is it debunked, it's debunked to the point where it was created with malice. No one who created it thought it worked. They knew it didn't. They just knew they could persuade other people that it did, and so they could make money. It was created by self-help book writers. Like, that should tell you everything you need to know.
That makes sense. That actually makes sense.
So it's one of those topics that I get really, and I get angry about it because I bought into it. I was trained it. It was all, this is important. This is important to know. Invested a lot of time in it, only to discover it was bollocks. So now it really annoys me.
I fell for it, darn it. I feel
exactly.
you.
Yeah. And so it annoys me that clearly more people are being taken advantage of.
Hey, we got a Dogs 94.
Would like to sell us some viewers. Awesome. We're fine, actually. People come here just because I'm that wonderful to listen to. Thank you, Dogs94. I don't need to pay for viewers. I've got 26 without paying a penny. And that does
Maybe
me
it's like, would
fine.
you like to see, if he were smart, he'd be like, would you like to make up for your garbage co-host? Streamdetails.com. And then you would be like, actually,
Is that a service they offer?
maybe. Maybe. If he's smart, if he knew his target audience.
No, you do a very good job of being our Luke to my Linus. In that I talk far too much and you're very polite about it. Yeah, no, I
That's
think
me feeling like a guest at that point. Like, it's your channel. We're gonna look.
this is, and what people forget is, because for those that don't know, Linus and Luke, or Luke and Linus, host the WAN show every Friday. It's a massive live stream. They get 20,000 viewers every week, all that kind of thing. But the joke is that Linus is this small person that talks a lot. Luke is a much taller person who predominantly sits there quite quietly, but then just makes very good points occasionally. Everyone prefers Luke.
I'll take that.
Like, it's just one of those sort of understood facts. But Linus will say the most, but Luke's worth listening to. But yeah, so I mean, in terms of the awards, it's the LPI awards, so I don't want to say I could care less, but kind of. A lot of money will change hands. Whether or not that shapes who wins, I couldn't possibly say. But I do.
What we're saying is, congratulations, Logitech, for learning technology.
No, these are not the Learning Technology Awards. These are the Learning Awards. I
in
have
the category.
fair enough.
Congrats to Disney for whatever.
Yes.
I'll just assume they'll win one.
The Learning Technology Awards, which is a separate awards situation, which is currently just been judged actually in the UK, I have a much higher respect for. I've seen the judging process for that; it's much better, etc. But yeah, no, I like that. I like that Solve Together is on the list. It deserves to be there. They deserve a lot more. They deserve to be known a lot more in our industry. I think their approach to L&D is, as I said, exactly what we've been talking about wanting more of. And so, to me, it's a no-brainer. Plus, the people that run it are just utterly delightful. It's they are some of the nicest people I have ever spoken to in the industry. The most helpful and patient and giving with their time. So they deserve an award without a shadow of a doubt, just for that. Cool. Great topic to end on. Good shout, Phil. We should have thought of that, really.
There we go. Yeah, it's not like we had plans.
Oh, bit of the news. Microsoft Stream now on SharePoint. It's actually good.
You know, I gotta give Microsoft credit for how it's integrated its technologies between like Teams and SharePoint. They've crushed the daylights out of it. Yeah. And I hate that I don't have any contract or anything that's using Teams right now.
Do you know, this is, I was chatting to someone earlier actually about they ran into Viva Learning. Remember that?
Yeah.
When, I was so excited when that came out, and it's just that no one is talking about it. And I feel like it's a great shame because that's such an opportunity to tie content into your Teams platform. And so many organizations, especially now they're remote, are more reliant on Teams than ever. So talk about, all this new technology. If you're a 365 house, which most businesses are realistically, there's so much there for you already. I always felt that Stream was underutilized, but I think moving it into SharePoint will help. The fact that it was separate, I think, killed it. But if it's in SharePoint now, that's very cool.
I don't remember the name of it. It was some add-on to Microsoft that tied people together based on the work they needed to do on various projects. It was wild. The context of it was that we wanted to create, when I worked for Epsilon, they wanted to create an AI learning system that taught you courses. You would say, like, what are the projects I'm on? What are the things that that project entails? And they gave you a learning path based off of what they knew, as well as connected you to individuals who had worked on similar things. And so they created their own system, only to find out that Microsoft had already done. They already built that. I'm trying to find the name of it. Like, you could just put in, like, these are the projects we're working on. Here's the tasks, be that, you know, project management or automation or orchestration or XYZ thing. And then through a various group of whatever crazy algorithm, it'd be like, hey, you're working on this company of this project. This person did something similar. You can do a knowledge share. They'd be a person to reach out to for questions. I'm gonna find it. It's gonna drive me nuts.
That's cool.
Brilliant.
It seems like there might be an issue with it though. Morgan saying, "Viva, we will charge you for new licenses learning."
Everybody does that.
Is this a problem that has killed it that I'm just unaware of? Again, weirdly, Teams is weirdly difficult. I'm a big advocate for Teams broadly. I struggle to use it on a Linux-based operating system just because it dies all the time. So yeah, it's one of those things that I was very excited about, but haven't really got to use much myself. So if there's a licensing issue, that would make sense as to why it's kind of not done so well. Teams can be finicky enough, I guess. If it adds to that bug list, then I could see why it's not taken off the way I assumed it would. Let's have a look. Q, let the dogs out. Yes, I would like to let the dogs out. Cool. So, well, Joey's looking at that. I think we are coming up rather rapidly on the end of the show, the end of our 2 hours.
Yeah, I'm not gonna find this fast enough.
That's all right. That's no problem. But oh, here we go. Some more information. I could totally see that happening. A Teams premium license in order to use it. That's yeah, that wouldn't shock anyone at this point, would it? But I'd like to think that Microsoft views it more as a, you know, it's worth adding it in without additional cost to the user, purely because it then ties people more thoroughly into the ecosystem. I mean, we know that model works because Apple exists. And that's the only reason they do, is they tie people in so tightly to the ecosystem, it's too painful to leave. It's a solid business model. So yes, let's bring things to a close. Thanks everyone for your input. It's been a really good stream, actually. Rather terrifyingly, I realized this the other day. We were approaching 2 years of doing this every month.
I know. Holy
Isn't
crap.
that worrying? My hope this year is that in December, we can actually, in addition to ID updates and stuff, do what sparked this whole off in the first place, and do a big fat instructional design review of the year. Where we get
Yes, that was
on,
fun last time.
you know, 4 or 5 guests, and we do maybe an hour and a half of like what's been good this year, what's been bad, what do you think will happen next year. So let us know in the comments if that's something you would like to see. And other than that, yeah, just really thank you everyone for joining. Again, before you go, if you've enjoyed the show, if you could hit the like button, it really helps us out. Thank you again to all our amazing Patreon members who make this channel possible, and for Olga for joining that group of people today live on stream. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Olga. I get nothing.
Wow. We will send Joey something. We will send him a thing.
Oh, you're fine.
Awesome. Well, thank you ever so much, everyone. Have an amazing month. And if we don't hear from you before, we shall see you in November. Isn't that terrifying?
Cheers, everybody.